I'm Lacey.
And I'm Sam.
Welcome to Monster Soup and Creature Brews, the podcast where we talk about all things monster movies, big, small, creepy, or downright ridiculous.
From movie monsters to cryptids lurking in the shadows of folklore, we're here to explore them all. So kick back, grab a snack,
or a drink,
and let's dive into some monster-filled mayhem.
On tonight's episode, we are going to be discussing 2014 Godzilla, and Sam here is going to kick us off with the official movie description.
The world is beset by the appearance of monstrous creatures, but one of them may be the only one who can save humanity.
ChatGPT explains it badly as, a giant radioactive lizard shows up to stop two giant bugs from destroying everything, while humans mostly run around, make bad decisions, and watch helplessly. In the end, the lizard wins and goes back to the ocean like nothing happened.
That's a pretty accurate description. It's not even like badly, like that's pretty much what happens.
But anyways, so overall, Sam, how did you feel about this movie?
I love this movie. I thought it was great. I can't wait to watch the next one.
I like this movie too. The graphics are definitely a step up from 1998 Godzilla.
It's not even fair.
No, it's not. There's
not
really
even
no
fair.
contest.
Yeah, especially like watching them back to back, you can really see the difference.
For the official synopsis, done badly by Lacey. The opening scene of the movie takes place in 1999, and we go into a very depressing looking mine in the Philippines. We see a bunch of people walking around, and they start talking about how there was a collapse, and they think about 40 miners possibly may have been trapped in the collapse, which seems like a number you should actually know definitively. The way they describe it makes it seem like they're not actually sure.
Right, like do you not have a count of all your personnel? And like just count the missing people, and it'll pretty much tell you how many are gone, but you know.
They didn't. No, they're not sure how many people went down in the mine, which is concerning. I'm going to go ahead and guess that they didn't try to recover any of them either, just based on context. Anyways, we go down into the hole, and inside this hole there is what looks like weird, sticky-looking cocoons. One of them is intact, and the other one has clearly
hatched.
Yeah, for lack of a better word. Looks broken open, although at that point in the movie you don't actually know that it's hatched. Then they sort of zoom out via helicopter, and you can see a path cut through the forest to the ocean, where whatever was in the giant sticky-looking cocoon clearly carved its way through and ran away. And then from there, we cut over to Japan. We see what I always think of as Hal from Malcolm in the Middle. That's not his name in this movie. Joe Brody is his name in this movie. And he has noticed some unusual readings on his machines. And we see his son, Ford Brody, sneaking around the house with a bunch of birthday signs and things of that nature, trying to surprise his dad. And then we see his wife, Sandra, come through and sort of corral everybody, as moms do, and they all leave the house to go to school and to work. And then she reminds Joe that it's actually his birthday, and that Ford was trying to surprise him, so he should be a little bit more attentive and pay attention to Ford.
And he doesn't clock any of this. So the whole time, he's just talking about work, when she's actively telling him, your son put up a happy birthday banner. And he just glosses over that and continues to talk about work. She even looks at him dead in the eye and says, happy birthday. He still misses it, and then she says it again, and he finally figures out, oh, and they start making out a little bit, and he's like, oh, I wish every day was my birthday. And he still hasn't figured out that his wife multiple times has said, you know, I'm going to get off early, you know, pick up our son, let him set up a happy birthday. And the whole time he's just like, whenever we get to work, make sure you go directly down there. Don't even bother coming up to the top, which is insane.
So, and they don't really define what their roles are at this power plant. They get to work. Sandra suits up, her safety suit, I'm going to assume.
The hazmat suit.
And her and a bunch of other people who are never named go down this creepy tunnel to go check why they might be getting all of these odd readings. Joe is up in what looks like a control room, and then all of a sudden, things, as they do, start shaking. The power plant starts going, collapsing. Joe starts freaking out because he realized, oh my gosh, Sandra's down there. he runs down to what looks like the end of a hallway where there's clearly some doors.
Yeah, they're like clearly the like bulk doors, the ones that's supposed to cut off contamination if there's some kind of leak.
And then we see a very sad scene where Sandra and the people she's with are trying to outrun this cloud of stuff.
We're assuming some type of radioactive activity or something. They're sprinting. Naturally, someone hits a pipe, trips over, knocks over everybody else. And at that point, they're like, yeah, there's no way we're going to make it. Close the doors.
Right, and the whole time, it's Joe on the radio trying to talk to Sandra. Sandra telling him, shut the door, you have to survive, you have to take care of Ford. And then him begging her to run faster, even though she's doing her best as she can in a plastic suit. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this movie, Sandra dies tragically. She does not make it to the door. Joe does close them right before the poisonous cloud of gas would have hit him. She makes it to the door and then sort of does a tragic slide down as she dies.
Well, actually, she takes her helmet off and says, take care of Ford. And then you just don't hear from her anymore. And at that point, a giant earthquake happens.
Right, and then it flicks to Ford at school being evacuated, and you watch his point of view as the plant collapses. And I'm impressed anybody made it out alive from that.
Yeah, we're talking like level 8 earthquake. And like everything in that surrounding area just collapses into the ground. There's no way anyone in that facility would have survived because that whole building would have just collapsed in on itself.
All right, and then we flick to 2014. Ford is now in the military. He's returning from deployment. It shows him coming home to his wife and son, Elle and Sam Brody. And Elle Brody's actually Elizabeth Olsen. Yeah, and, Elle's happy to see Ford because he's been deployed for 18 months. She's missed him. He's missed their son. It shows them doing family type things. And then right when he was about to enjoy the fact that he's just come home to his wife after 18 months, he gets a call from the Japanese government. Apparently his dad, Joe, has been arrested sneaking around the restricted area around the nuclear plant where he used to have to work.
Now talk about blue balls. I would be upset.
Military balls.
I'd have left him in jail. That's just me.
Well, this is the part of the movie where I felt really bad for Sam because he's really happy that his dad is home and he makes him promise that he's not going anywhere. And
so you're going to be here when I wake up, right? Well, that's a lie.
Well, Ford does promise that and then, of course, instantly leaves to go to Japan because of this phone call. And kids don't always understand nuances. It's very black and white when you're that little.
He could have stayed one more night. Oh.
So I do feel bad for Sam Brody at this point in the movie. Then Ford gets to Japan. Dad does the walk of shame out of jail, goes to his apartment, and then it looks very much like that scene from that you see in the memes from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with Charlie, and he's got the wall of crazy with the yarn strings and all the pieces of
like
paper
conspiracy
up on
theorist
it.
Thing.
This is very much what Joe Brody's apartment looks like. Apparently, he's been obsessively tracking all of the seismic activity around the nuclear power plant restricted zone. And he's discovered that the seismic activity has been picking up and becoming very similar to the patterns that were displayed right before the meltdown that killed his wife. He is clearly very not over that. Which, to be fair, I don't know that you would ever truly get over that, but he's definitely let it consume him and was perhaps implied not the best dad to Ford.
From the outside looking in, he looks like a crazy. But having seen the movie, we know he's not crazy. He's on to something. I could understand, because Ford is constantly like, Dad, you should just come back, live with us. Your grandson misses you. He wants to spend time with you. In the morning, let's go back.
So he does manage to convince Ford to go back to the area with him. And so they sneak into the restricted no trespassing zone and they go back to their old house. They see some very sad, depressing, old photographs of Mom.
Yeah, but you're also missing the part where they were actually in full hazmat suits because this whole area is supposed to be irradiated and there's supposed to be lethal levels of radiation here, but his Geiger counter isn't going off, and he's like, what's going on? And then he just says, fuck it, just takes his suit off, and he's like, this whole area is supposed to be irradiated. They're clearly lying to us. There's more hidden here.
Really, he just embraces the crazy, the truth of the situation, as only a crazy person would.
It really shows off his acting skills, because, like, he is selling it so well.
They get caught and promptly arrested and thrown in the back of a truck. And then, for some reason, they take Joe into a room to interrogate him, but they leave Ford in the truck. And while this is happening, and one of them's in the truck and one of them's being interrogated, we get our first look at, I'm going to call it a chrysalis.
That's pretty much what it is.
It doesn't, you don't really realize that's what it is at first, but it's a giant, very dark,
pupa,
sticky looking cocoon thing.
Yeah.
It's huge and it's pulsating. And they have all of these walkways built around it, and they're doing scientific things.
They have a lot of equipment measuring like how the rate, the levels of the radiation. Because it's like this little cocoon thing is absorbing all the radiation in the area. And that's why there's no, like, this whole area should be a fallout zone, but there's no radiation. It's because this little cocoon has been absorbing it. And it has, like, a cycle that it keeps running through where it looks like it's powering up to, like, send them through the Stargate, but it's actually absorbing all of the radiation in the area. And I think we missed a part too, where when they're in their house, he finds all these old floppy disks that has all his, like, recordings of all the information or everything that was going on before the fallout. Somehow he saved all these, and they confiscated them in that little facility when they arrested them, and started, like, looking through them and started to notice, like, hey, this guy used to work at the plant that we're currently in. He might know something. That's why they're interrogating.
Anyways, nobody taking measurements and acting scientific seems all that concerned that the giant pulsating, glowing cocoon thing is becoming more active. Or I guess I should say nobody seems as concerned as they should be. They're still all walking around on the little walkways and, like, standing next to it. And just size alone and the fact that it's pulsating, I feel like would mean you should take a step back.
I mean, they technically give the order to, like, evacuate the area, but evacuate the area literally meant, like, get off the catwalks and get on the ground floor, but they're still, like, in the same area with it.
Anyways, inevitably, this cocoon thing starts to hatch, and everybody starts running around panicking, and we get the first look at our MUTO, massive unidentified terrestrial organism.
Even though it can fly.
The MUTO is an insect-like creature.
It looks like a flea with wings.
Or like if a flea and a beetle had a baby.
It's more like a flea and a bat.
Yeah.
It has, like, bat wings. They're like, they look leathery.
Kind of glows a little bit. It's just they do a good job of making it look not human.
Yes.
I would say. It doesn't look like anything from this world. So when you watch, for instance, the 1998 Godzilla, really Godzilla looks more like a mutated iguana.
It looks like a dinosaur, to be honest. It looks like a T-Rex with regular size arms.
Yeah. In this movie, the MUTOs really do look like creepy, alien-like insect things.
It looks just close enough to things that we have on Earth to be feasible that it, like, in a certain period in the Earth's history, it could have been a monster and, like, eventually adapted into something else. Because technically they talk about this where these creatures are, like, before dinosaurs, it sounds like, during an area where the Earth was more, radiation heavy, and these monsters used to feed on that radiation.
As the radiation went away, they went underground and into the ocean where there were still radioactive pockets or cores and have continued to live that way. So, the giant bat beetle wreaks havoc. Everybody who didn't get off the catwalks fast enough quickly dies. And then, of course, Ford is trapped in the van, still arrested. His dad is trying to escape. Ford's trying to escape. And we see a walkway collapse with his dad still on it. Ford tries to help him. This all ends up wrapping up with the U.S. military coming in and saying they're taking over the operation from Monarch. We see a Japanese scientist who's very upset. He's lost members of his team.
Ford's dad essentially gets, like, critically injured, and they're, like, life-flighting them away.
Ford's dad dies, so Ford talks to the scientists that were involved in monitoring the sticky-looking chrysalis and convinces them that he might be able to help. They want to talk to him because he listened to his dad's theories and witnessed his wall of crazy, And then they have all of his dad's discs. They discover that the pulses the creature was emitting, something was pulsing back. So they think it might have been communicating somehow with something else. At this point, the MUTO travels across the Pacific Ocean, first to Hawaii, where it then promptly wrecks a lot of stuff. We find out that this creature is targeting things that are radioactive so it can eat them.
Yeah, it's looking for like nuclear waste so it can feed on it.
So in Hawaii, our MUTO wrecks a bunch of stuff and destroys a train system and causes a lot of damage. This is the first time we actually do get to see Godzilla in this movie. Godzilla causes a tsunami. He comes out of the ocean.
He pretty much dukes it out with the MUTO, and the MUTO runs away.
Yeah, pretty much. At this point, Ford does try to contact Elle. However, she doesn't answer her phone. It goes to voicemail. And then he is trying to find his way out of Hawaii. And he manages to talk his way onto a
military convoy that's flying over to California to try to intercept the monster.
We then cut to a scene where our scientists from the nuclear power plant are explaining to the government that the MUTO came from that original site from the mine in 1999. It then traveled to the nuclear power plant, became that sticky chrysalis thing, which they should have been way more concerned about, and that they had been studying it all that time, and that there had been another
egg, yeah,
of that we had seen in the beginning that they had taken to Nevada and had been studying it there.
They couldn't get any information from the egg, and the egg was still radioactive, and so they took it to a radioactive waste plant. They thought it was useless and wasn't worth studying anymore, so they put it in literally the worst possible place. More nuclear waste all around it. Naturally, they cut to Nevada, and it hatches because it's getting that signal from the other MUTO. So now it knows that it's time to get up and move. And this one's a girl and has lots of eggs attached to it. But it essentially breaks out of their little nuclear waste plant and starts heading towards the other MUTO.
Yeah, and it wrecks the Las Vegas Strip.
Yeah,
essentially.
You see it doing its thing all up in Vegas.
If you were in Vegas partying at like your bachelorette or bachelor party, let's say you'd drop some acid or have been doing some other stuff, how bad do you think your trip would be if you saw that thing walking down the strip?
Yeah, you pretty much would just lose it.
Anyways, they are now trying to find a way to destroy both MUTOs and Godzilla. However, the scientists explain that no, you shouldn't destroy Godzilla. He's here to restore natural order and he can take on the MUTOs for you.
But they don't take any of his words to heart. They're just like, we're going to do what we want to do because, there's X amount of people in danger and I can't trust you and blah, blah, blah. In reality, though, like, every military strategist would be like, hey, there's monsters that are going to fight each other. Why don't we let them fight each other first and then try to take them out? Instead, they go full Monty and start trying to attack Godzilla, and Godzilla just essentially brushes them off and keeps heading towards the MUTO, so they just have to, give up until they end up fighting anyways.
Yeah, so the military come up with this plan where they're going to bomb the MUTOs with these radioactive bombs, which these creatures eat radiation and actively seek it out, so this was never a good plan. They then are going to put these bombs on trains. That's how they're going to transport them. Ford manages to talk his way onto these trains.
Just a side note, Ford is actually an EOD specialist. He essentially tells them, this is what I do for a living. It's probably a good idea to have one more guy on that's actually worked with bombs in recent times. And so he manages to sweet talk his way onto this train or mission, so we get to watch him get banged around by the MUTO.
While he's on this mission with the train, the female MUTO finds it, of course, destroys it promptly, kills most everybody. And then there is this one scene where Ford and another soldier are laying down on the train tracks, trying not to make noise so that they're not noticed. And you see the female MUTO crawl over them, and you can see eggs on her belly, which look
super creepy.
Very creepy because they kind of glow.
Kind of look like salmon eggs, all except in a pouch.
Which is, I think, when everybody really starts to realize that, okay, you have a boy MUTO and a girl MUTO, and you're about to have a lot of baby MUTOs. After this scene happens, we then go to San Francisco, and we get to go back to Elle, who has decided she has seen the news reports of the earthquake. It was reported initially as an earthquake in Japan. She has seen the news reports of Godzilla and the MUTO in Hawaii, and has still chosen to go to work, which I would like to say, it's okay to take a sick day, girl.
All I can think is, like, you're a slave to the system. Like, it's a trap. Use your vacation days.
I feel like if your husband is initially unaccounted for, because at first she did not know if he survived the earthquake, quote unquote, in Japan, and then he was in Hawaii, where you've seen all of this horrible news footage of these giant monsters wrecking a bunch of stuff. It's okay to call your boss and be like, you know what? I need a day to process. I'm going to stay home with Sam. We've got some stuff we need to figure out emotionally, mentally. But no, homegirl goes to work. She takes Sam with her. And then, so we do see scenes of her in the hospital. And then we see the MUTOs headed towards San Francisco. We see them trying to evacuate people, which in California, if you've ever been to California, the road systems are horrendous on a good day.
Trying to evacuate anything in California is just utterly impossible. You might as well walk.
Yeah, they're bad on a good day. They're really, really bad on a panicked day. So, of course, it shows all these scenes of everything really gridlocked up, car accidents everywhere, everything is mass chaos. Another reason to stay home, just for the record.
Yep.
And eventually they decide that they need to evacuate the children. I'm going to assume that they're other employees' children or potentially kids in the hospital. They put them on a bus, and we see that bus drive off. Elle chooses to stay at the hospital and wait for Ford.
She got a call. She's gotten a couple calls from Ford. One saying, hey, I'm heading to Hawaii, and then from Hawaii I'll be heading to California. And then he gives her another message saying, hey, I'll be wherever you are. I'll be there within like 6 or 7 hours or something like that. Wait for me. So she doesn't want to leave because she thinks Ford will miss them and they won't be able to find each other again. Long story short, that happens anyways.
She should have taken a sick day. That's really where you should take a sick day, girl. It's okay. The military then comes into play. They're still gonna try their bomb plan, but now it's a bigger, scarier version of a bomb.
And they're using it as bait. So they're trying to lure the monsters into certain areas, in particular away from like civilization.
It does not work.
At all.
And they end up luring the monsters smack dab into San Francisco, which visually does look very cool when they start fighting. But as far as a plan goes, bad idea.
It was a terrible plan. They had like this plan to like bait the monsters in and then either defuse the bomb and then let them just eat it and let them fight, or get it onto a boat and try to lure them out to sea. Well, when they tried to defuse the bomb, for some reason they couldn't like open it or whatever. I'm not sure what they were trying to do. And then they try to go to plan B, but right before they do plan B, they see the female MUTO shows up and it has like laid all their eggs in like one spot. And Ford is like, nah, I got this, and lights all that on fire.
And then, honestly, rightly so, female MUTO pissed, really angry. All her babies just went up and little baby smoke.
Oh.
Right around then, Godzilla shows up. Everybody's fighting everybody. And at first, it looks like Godzilla's losing.
I mean, he had one pinned down and was ready to finish it, but then the male MUTO flies in and gives him the clothesline, and then he starts having to go 2v1, and he's like holding his own, but the MUTOs got him. They jumped him. Like, what was he supposed to do? But then when Ford lights the eggs on fire, the female MUTO runs away, and he kind of gets some breathing room. And then when the male MUTO goes to try to investigate what's going on with the eggs, Godzilla catches him by surprise with his tail, gives him a little smack, knocks him down, finishes him off, and then they cut back to Ford trying to run away with the bomb again.
Because this bomb is extra bad, extra dirty, it didn't have a proper...
like an off switch. It didn't have an off switch.
And it didn't have a remote way to do anything.
Yeah, and it had a timer, so it was like a nuclear bomb with a clock.
So he and the other military members are essentially trying to get it out to a boat to take it back out to sea. This is a problematic plan. for several reasons. We see Ford attempting to do that with his military buddies. The majority of them die.
They get to the boat, but they can't, for some reason they can't get it to start. And they have the bomb on the boat. They try to get it to start. They can't, so they all try to leave. And the MUTO shows up, and they're shooting at the MUTO, because the MUTO is just pissy because its eggs just got killed. And Ford is I'm not giving up on the plan, and keeps trying to get the boat to get off the dock. At the last second, he finally gets it off and starts heading out to sea, and the MUTO's about to follow him, and then Godzilla snatches it up.
Okay. I would like to say I was so unprepared for the first time I saw this particular fight, because my childhood version of Godzilla is the 1998 one. It's just a mutant iguana. This Godzilla has plasma breath, and it pulls apart the female MUTO's jaws, and then just vomits plasma breath down its throat and essentially decapitates it that way.
It's easily the best scene in the movie.
And I was unprepared for it. I had no idea that it was going to be that bad.
Yeah, so Godzilla does the mouth wrench, the jaws of life, and just right into its mouth. And then it goes down because it's been all beat up and tired, so everyone thinks all the monsters killed themselves. And the whole time Ford's in the boat, speeding out into the middle of the ocean, and he's about to pass out, and you can just see the timer ticking down, and then out of nowhere, some dude in a helicopter just grabs him, picks him up, coats him off, and then there's a giant explosion out to sea.
And then we get to see some of the after effects of this battle, where they're trying to pull people out of the rubble. Ford has found Sam, his son, which is good. Elle had sent him off on the bus earlier, and I did forget to mention that there was a scene with Godzilla
waking up
from the ocean and a bridge with the kids in the bus. It's very dramatic. None of the kids die. This would be a very different type of movie if they had killed small children on a bus in a bridge. Well, in a bus on a bridge. Anyways, so Ford has Sam. They see Elle walking in with another group of refugee survivors. And then we see an image of Godzilla, who at first kind of looks like might be dead, but then Godzilla breathes out.
Yeah, they close up in on his face, and you see him he looks still, and then out of nowhere you see him breathe out of his nose, and then he kind of wakes up, gets up, does his little roar of victory, and then heads back into the ocean like nothing ever happened.
Just like ChatGPT explained badly, nothing happened. General thoughts on this Godzilla movie?
Oh, this is probably I haven't watched any of the other ones yet, but right now this is probably my favorite Godzilla movie. It's super good.
I liked this movie. I liked the graphics. I will say that I really think it's more of a MUTO movie versus a Godzilla movie. Godzilla's in it, but it's really more about the giant mutated bat bug things.
But I feel old school. I'm probably just rose-tinted glasses, but I remember old school Godzilla movies literally being Godzilla fighting other monsters were usually the main point of the movies. And I feel they did a lot of setup. From what I've heard from other people, the other movies, there's more hands. You see more Godzilla fighting monsters.
They probably did this for people like me who aren't as familiar with the lore.
Yeah.
So because this is part of a series, essentially, it does set up future movies well. Yeah. So do you know that moment in The Big Bang Theory where Amy accidentally ruins Indiana Jones for Sheldon? Yeah. I'm about to do the same thing. We could have absolutely not had Elle or Sam or Ford Brody in this movie, and it would not have changed the plot line at all.
They were all pretty irrelevant. The only thing that Ford did was destroy the MUTO eggs.
Which they could have had any soldier do.
Yeah, but I feel everyone else was so preoccupied with everything else, no one else was paying attention to the eggs. It felt a very Nyctotopoulos, where he's the only one that's this thing's going to reproduce, and then we're fucked. So we need to figure this out.
Even then, they could have had somebody else.
They could have just dropped some bombs on them.
Right, blow up those eggs, and they would have been completely irrelevant.
I feel they
didn't need to be here for the plot.
They did more damage than they did good for most of the movie, because they kept feeding the MUTOs more
radiation. Yeah, on accident. They kept accidentally helping it grow and have babies.
They did more damage than good. If they just let Godzilla do his thing, he would have killed the first MUTO, and there would have been no problems. Then they could have just hunted down the second one.
To be fair, it does sound a little outlandish to be we're going to let the other giant monster just do its thing and kill these two and not be concerned about it.
I can 100% see, not wanting to let any one of the giant creatures roam free. But let's be serious. They don't have the firepower to take it down anyways. So it's better to let him fight it out and then get them while they're down.
They should have just lured them into the desert of Nevada where there is nothing and let them fight it out there instead of San Francisco and Hawaii.
That's what I was saying. If they just let Godzilla do his thing, they wouldn't have had to worry about a lot of this.
And that is 2014 Godzilla. If you've stuck with us this long, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, leave us a review and like our podcast. But be nice because we're new.
Bye.
This Monsterverse moment is going to be about things that can feed off of radiation in honor of our MUTOs from 2014 Godzilla. I'm sure this will come as a shock to no one. There is not actually giant creatures that eat radiation. There's not even medium-sized creatures that eat radiation.
I don't know about that. The Meg.
Great movie. We're going to cover that later. But there is fungi that eats radiation. It's called radiotrophic fungi. It's a unique group of fungi capable of using radiation such as gamma rays and X-rays as an energy source to grow and thrive. These fungi contain melanin, which is a pigment, same as us. It colors them, makes them darker, so it's found in their cell walls, and it helps them absorb the radiation and convert it into usable energy. These fungi were first identified in, would you like to guess where?
Where?
Chernobyl in 1991. Researchers found that these fungi were not just that they were there and they existed, which is surprising in and of itself, in these areas that had very, very high radiation and were dangerous to be around, but they actually seemed to be growing towards the higher radiation levels and thriving.
They want to move closer so they can get a better snack.
The exact way that they managed to do this is not entirely known. They're still under study. People have theories about it. Essentially, what they think is that the melanin in their cell walls absorbs the radiation and then undergoes a change. This leads to increased metabolic activity within the fungal cells, which gives them energy and helps them grow. So essentially, instead of regular photosynthesis, where they would take sunlight to do this, they do radiosynthesis, and they take this radiation and use it and convert it into energy. Which, even though it's fungi, still pretty cool that anything can do that, actually.
Yeah.
They've shown these radiotrophic fungi have increased growth rates compared to those that are in lower level radiation areas, so it does seem to actually give them more juice, more oomph. There's a couple different species that do this. They have very long scientific names. The first one is Cryptococcus neoformans. Another one is Cladosporium cephalosporium. And a third one is, you know what, I'm not going to say the third one. There's no way I get this right. You guys are probably going to drag me over the first two. Basically, they are highly melanized, different forms of fungi that can live off radiation. So, the reason that people care about this is that A, it's surprising and kind of cool, and then B, the fact that these exist means that there might be a way that we could purposefully grow this fungi or release this fungi to help clean up radioactive contaminations. There are implications for space exploration.
That's interesting.
Yes. So cosmic radiation on missions in space, particularly as you get further out in the solar system, if you had something that absorbed some of that, you could help protect astronauts from being exposed. So NASA has been conducting experiments aboard the International Space Station to test this fungi's ability to shield against cosmic radiation.
Yeah.
Those are newer tests, more recent years. So they don't really have a ton of studies or data on them, but they're still seeing what they can do. So there's interesting implications there. They're doing some medical research to understand how melanin protects these fungal cells from radiation damage, and then if they could use that to lead to any proactive treatments for humans, because radiation does some real nasty shit to us. Yeah. And then I did read one article that said that they're thinking that this could be used for potentially food production in space.
That's terrifying.
Which, no.
Yeah,
First of all, I don't know, as much as I love all of the space-themed movies and big Star Trek and Star Wars fan, the thought of eating this fungus is just I will stay on Earth.
Yeah.
No,
thank you.
I'll
leave that to later generations.
I don't like the implications that it itself has fed off radiation, so I'm eating
irradiated whatever.
You know, it's just like, even if they're like, no, it's totally safe. I don't know that mentally I'll get over that, and I'm gonna show you why. Would you like to see a picture, Samuel?
Sure.
And this is a picture of the Cryptococcus nephroformans. And if I have said that wrong, I'm not a scientist, guys. I'm doing my best here.
It looks like mold.
It's fungi. Would you want to eat that?
No.
No,
thank you. Yeah, I'm good.
But anyway, so while there are not, that we know of, any giant MUTOs that have, laid creepy, sticky-looking chrysalises in the earth, there is mold. So, silver linings.
Right? Something's out there.
Something's out there eating radiation. And I maintain that could be a cool book. The fungi gets too big, starts eating people. There's something there.
The fungi's alive.
You know what? Astronaut gets stuck up in space. All he has to eat is this horrible mold for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and he goes insane.
Nah, I'll just pass away. It's not worth it.
All right, and that is today's Monsterverse Moment. We hope you enjoyed it.
Catch you next time.